At exactly 2:13 in the morning, billionaire Adrian Blackwood stared at the security monitor in disbelief. His paralyzed twin brother was supposed to be sleeping. The room was supposed to be empty. But on the screen, a young black maid was kneeling beside the bed, quietly holding his brother's hand. Then she did something that made Adrian freeze. She leaned close to the motionless man's ear and whispered, "I know you can hear me. Please don't give up." Adrian's heart stopped. For 3 years, doctors had told him the same thing. His twin brother, Ethan, could not hear them, could not understand them, could not respond. And most importantly, according to every specialist Adrian had hired, Ethan had no meaningful awareness of the world around him. Yet the maid was talking to him as if she knew a secret nobody else knew. Adrian leaned closer to the monitor. Then he watched her do something even stranger. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, opened it beside Ethan's bed, and began writing down every tiny movement his fingers made. Adrian's face went pale, because he had installed that hidden camera only hours earlier for one reason. He suspected someone in his mansion was hurting his brother. He had never imagined that the person he would discover beside Ethan at 2 in the morning would be the one person everyone else had ignored. And what happened the following morning would change both brothers' lives forever. If you believe that kindness can reach someone even when the entire world has given up on them, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this one. 3 years earlier, Adrian and Ethan Blackwood had been nearly impossible to separate. They were identical twins born only 11 minutes apart, raised in a wealthy family where money had never been a problem but love often had been. Adrian was the ambitious one. Ethan was the gentle one. Adrian built businesses. Ethan built relationships. Adrian could walk into a boardroom and make 20 executives nervous without saying more than 5 words. Ethan could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with everyone smiling. Their differences had never divided them. Instead, they had made them stronger. Until one rainy night changed everything. Ethan had been driving home from a charity event when another vehicle crossed the center line. The crash was catastrophic. The other driver died instantly. Ethan survived, but he suffered a severe spinal cord injury, leaving him completely paralyzed from the neck down. There had also been extensive neurological damage. For weeks, Adrian sat beside his brother's hospital bed, refusing to accept what doctors were telling him. He paid for the best specialists in the country. Then he flew doctors in from Europe. Then from Asia. He spent millions on experimental rehabilitation programs. Nothing worked. Ethan's eyes sometimes opened. Sometimes they stared toward the ceiling. Sometimes they moved toward sounds. But there was no speech. No movement. No obvious response to questions. Eventually, the specialists began using a phrase Adrian hated. Persistent vegetative state. Adrian refused to hear it. "He's still in there," Adrian would say. Doctors would exchange sympathetic looks. Adrian interpreted those looks as surrender. So he never surrendered. He turned the entire east wing of his mansion into a private medical facility. Ethan had a hospital bed, specialized equipment, private nurses, physical therapists, and a rotating team of caregivers. The mansion itself became strangely silent. Adrian stopped hosting parties, stopped dating, stopped taking vacations. His company grew into one of the largest investment firms in the country, but Adrian rarely celebrated his success. What good was a billion-dollar empire if the one person he wanted to share it with couldn't even speak to him? Then came Mara. Mara Johnson was 26 years old when she started working at the Blackwood estate. She was hired as a maid through an agency after her previous employer suddenly shut down their household staff. She had no wealthy family behind her. No influential connections. No expensive education. She simply needed work. On her first day, the head housekeeper gave her strict instructions. "Don't enter Mr. Ethan's room unless you're assigned to clean it." Mara nodded. "And don't talk to him." Mara looked confused. "Why?" The housekeeper lowered her voice. "Because he doesn't respond." Mara glanced toward the closed bedroom door. "Still, he might hear." The housekeeper frowned. "Miss Johnson, you don't understand. We've had nurses and therapists here for years. Don't become emotionally attached." Mara didn't argue. She simply nodded and went back to work. For the first 2 weeks, nobody noticed anything unusual. Mara cleaned rooms, folded laundry, prepared tea, Polished expensive furniture. She was quiet and respectful. But there was one thing she did every evening. When she finished her duties, she would walk past Ethan's room. Sometimes she stopped, sometimes she didn't, and occasionally, she entered. Not to clean, not to rearrange anything, she simply sat beside him. At first, it was only for 5 minutes. Then 10, then 20. Nobody knew why. Mara never told anyone, but she had a reason. Her younger brother had died when she was 17. He had spent his final months in a hospital bed after an accident. During those months, everyone had spoken around him as though he wasn't there. Doctors spoke over him, nurses rushed past him, visitors whispered about him, but Mara's mother had always insisted on one thing. Talk to him, she would say. Even if he can't answer. Never let him feel forgotten. Mara had learned something during those terrible months. Silence did not always mean absence. Sometimes, a person could be trapped behind silence and still be desperately listening. So every evening, Mara talked to Ethan. She told him about the weather. She told him when the roses outside were blooming. She told him about funny things the kitchen staff had done. Sometimes she read newspaper articles aloud. Sometimes she simply sat beside him and talked about her brother. You would have liked him, she whispered one night. Ethan's eyes remained still. Mara smiled sadly. He was stubborn too. She reached for his hand. Actually, you two would have fought all the time. She laughed softly. Then she noticed something. Ethan's index finger moved. Barely. So slightly that most people wouldn't have noticed. Mara stopped breathing. She stared at his hand. Ethan. Nothing. She waited. Then his finger moved again. Mara's heart began racing. She immediately called the nurse. But when the nurse arrived, Ethan was still. The nurse checked his vitals and shook her head. Reflex. Mara didn't believe her. The next night, she tested it. She sat beside Ethan and said, if you can hear me, move your finger twice. Nothing happened. Mara waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Then Ethan's finger twitched. Once. Mara's eyes widened. She repeated the request. Twice. The finger moved again. 2 tiny movements. Mara covered her mouth. She didn't tell the doctors. Not yet. She wanted to be certain. For the next several weeks, she began recording everything in a small notebook. Date, time, question, response. Sometimes there was nothing. Sometimes there was a tiny movement. A finger, an eyelid, a change in breathing. Once, when Mara mentioned his brother Adrian, Ethan's heart rate increased slightly. Another time, when she told him she was leaving for the evening, his finger moved. Mara began to believe something extraordinary. Ethan was aware, maybe not fully, maybe not consistently, but he was there. Trapped somewhere inside his own body. And he was trying to communicate. The problem was that Mara had no medical authority. Nobody important listened to a maid. Especially not in a mansion where millions of dollars had already been spent on doctors. So she kept observing. Until Adrian noticed something. It happened on a Thursday morning. Adrian was standing outside Ethan's room when he saw Mara leaving. She froze when she noticed him. Adrian looked at her. You were in there. Yes, sir. Why? Mara hesitated. I was checking something. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What? Nothing. That answer bothered him. Adrian had spent his entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Money, connections, favors. He trusted very few people. And Mara had just walked out of his brother's room at 6 in the morning looking frightened. Open the door, Adrian ordered. Mara stepped aside. Adrian entered. Ethan lay motionless beneath the white sheets. Nothing appeared unusual. Adrian looked back at Mara. What were you checking? She lowered her eyes. Your brother. I know that. I think he may be trying to communicate. Adrian went completely still. What did you say? Mara swallowed. I think Ethan can hear us. Adrian's expression hardened. Do you know how many specialists have examined him? Yes, sir. Do you know what they concluded? Yes. And you're telling me you know more than them? No. Mara's voice became softer. I'm saying maybe they didn't find the right way to listen. For several seconds, neither spoke. Adrian looked at Ethan, then back at Mara. Leave. Mara nodded. But before she stepped through the doorway, she turned. Sir. What? Please don't talk about him as if he's already gone. Adrian's jaw tightened. Mara walked away. That sentence stayed with him all day. That evening, Adrian made a decision. He didn't confront Mara. He didn't question the nurses. He didn't tell anyone what she had said. Instead, he called his security director. Install a camera in Ethan's room. The director looked surprised. Sir, we already have hallway surveillance. I don't want the hallway. You want audio too? Adrian stared through the glass wall toward the east wing. Yes. Should we inform the staff? No. The camera was installed that afternoon. Small. Almost invisible. Positioned above a bookshelf facing Ethan's bed. Adrian told himself it was about security. But deep down, he wanted to know what Mara was doing. Maybe she was simply strange. Maybe she was exploiting his brother's condition. Maybe she was looking for attention. Or maybe she knew something he didn't. That night, Adrian sat alone in his private office. The mansion was silent. On his computer screen, the camera feed showed Ethan's bedroom. 11:42 p.m. Nothing. 12:15 a.m. Nothing. 12:47 a.m. Nothing. 1:03 a.m. Still nothing. Adrian rubbed his tired eyes. Then at 1:58 a.m., the bedroom door slowly opened. Mara stepped inside. She was wearing simple gray work clothes. She looked exhausted. She closed the door behind her and walked toward Ethan. Adrian leaned forward. Mara pulled a chair beside the bed. Then she did something that made Adrian's stomach tighten. She took Ethan's hand. Not professionally. Not casually. She held it with the tenderness of someone holding the hand of a frightened child. I'm sorry I'm late tonight, she whispered. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Mara looked toward the camera without knowing it was there. Then she turned back to Ethan. I had to finish downstairs. She paused. Are you still awake? Ethan didn't move. Mara opened her notebook. Okay. Let's try again. Adrian's heart began beating faster. Mara placed 2 fingers gently against Ethan's hand. If you hear me, move your finger once. Nothing happened. Mara waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Then Ethan's finger moved. Adrian shot upright in his chair. Mara smiled. I knew it. Adrian's mouth fell open. Mara leaned closer. Okay. 1 movement means yes. 2 means no. We'll keep it simple. Adrian stared at the screen. His brother was responding. Maybe. He didn't know. But Mara continued. Are you comfortable? 1 movement. Yes. Adrian's eyes filled with disbelief. Mara adjusted Ethan's pillow. Better. 1 movement. She smiled. Good. Adrian whispered to himself. Impossible. Then Mara asked the question that changed everything. Are you afraid? For the first time, Ethan's finger didn't move once. It moved twice. Mara's smile disappeared. She leaned closer. Are you afraid someone will hurt you? 2 movements. Adrian stopped breathing. Mara looked around the room. Her face suddenly became serious. Is it someone in this house? Ethan's finger moved. Once. Adrian's blood ran cold. Mara's eyes filled with fear. She lowered her voice. Is it someone who takes care of you? Ethan's finger moved again. Once. Adrian stared at the monitor. For 3 years, he had believed his brother was trapped inside a silent body. Now, at 2:13 in the morning, a maid had just discovered that Ethan could answer questions. But then Mara asked one final question. And Ethan's response made her suddenly look toward the bedroom door. Is it Adrian? 1 movement. Adrian's face went completely white. His brother had just answered yes. And before Adrian could even process what he had seen, Mara leaned toward Ethan and whispered something that made the billionaire's blood run cold. Then we have to pretend you can't hear us. Adrian slowly stood from his chair. Because now he had 2 questions. Why was his brother afraid of him? And what exactly had Mara discovered inside that mansion? The answers were closer than he could imagine. But the following morning, Adrian would make a decision that would put Mara in danger, and force Ethan to reveal just how much he truly knew.